The first tap of a conductor's wand. The first rivet in a mile-high tower. The master link at the genesis of a never-ending chain. The moment a single empty canvas meets a singular master stroke. There is no one thing. Because now, there are many. Because soon, there will be more. Because one is ever the beginning. Like the first link in an infinite chain, or the first rivet in the tallest skyscraper. The master stroke is found in the masterpiece. What will you begin?
And welcome to World Blockchain Roundtable. This is episode 107, and we are going to be talking artificial intelligence. We have never talked about that on this show, so you have to tune in and watch this one for us to talk about AI. But before we get into that, let's introduce our panel. As always, Distant, aka Dave, kicking it off with you.
That's me. Howdy.
Hey, we got Jay from the University of Florida. All it has in my notes is that you're a developer. We'll dive more into that later, figure out exactly what you develop. We got Greg from Rivet, Litecoin Lisa joining us as always, Joe Dragon, and we have Satoshi Sean joining us. How's everybody doing today?
Doing
wonderful.
well.
I love it. Great. All
Great.
right. And my name is John Branch, your host. Here I am. And let's get into things. So last week, a quick update. We did. We're going to be distributing layer ownership tokens. Each host from last week is going to receive 80 lot. Each topic contributor is receiving 33 lot. And last week's theme was insurance for the mobile generation. It was a banger. If you missed it, go back and watch it. It was amazing. This was suggested by I Am for I Am, who's receiving 33 lot for that. As a reminder, these ownership tokens come with perpetual passive income, free edits, and governance votes. As I said before, this week's theme is artificial intelligence, and this was nominated by Distant, aka Dave. Yeah. So let's jump into that first question.
You're welcome.
As always, we've got so many questions, so I want to try to get through as many as we can, while we can still answer them fair. So this one comes from Bad Hair Club. His question is, gaming has come a long way, and just recent, the head of Blizzard stated that in future games, the game will make content itself. I ran across this research paper called Generative Agents, Interactive Simulacra of Human Behavior. A few people have covered it, but they only showed screenshots. I did think either had the actual document of the study. My question is, here's the question. In what way do you think these agents will be useful in-game? There's a question. Dave, you want to take first crack at this one?
Sure. Yeah. I think what I'm pretty sure that Bad Hair Club's talking about is basically using AI and LLMs and interactive NPCs that don't rely on a pre-programmed dialogue branching tree thing like most RPGs you play, most video games you play. You have, once again, the question about writers. Typically, you employ a bunch of writers to write a compelling story that's going to be good no matter which way you go, or at least interesting. And but it's very predictable and it's very limited when you compare that to like Dungeons and Dragons or a tabletop game where you have some people's creativity creating the story and the plot on the fly, right? So this kind of stuff I think is really cool because it brings video games and the RPG experience that people have like on a game console, like a PlayStation or something, closer to the possibilities that you get in a traditional tabletop game. So I think that's how I interpret this question, and I don't see a downside for the consumer on this. Really, I think it's really amazing. You could argue that it's questionably the impact on the economy in that industry, maybe, but I think if the question's about what do I think about it, I'm for it. I think it's amazing, and I hope it develops awesome games for me to play.
Yeah, I'm excited for No Man's Sky. Maybe they'll integrate this into it. AI generating their own plans on the whim, but now they're going to generate their own people on the whim.
That's something that's a great example, because the game is amazing except for the dialogue. So that would be a perfect like that game historically suffers in the dialogue realm. So this could be something that Hello Games and Sean Murray takes and runs with, and I would be happy to pay them to do it by buying an additional like an expansion or something for that.
Yeah,
That's
DLC,
something I would buy.
A little DLC for you, Dave.
Mhm.
Jay, what do you think about AI here in gaming?
Yeah, AI has always been in gaming. It's always made it fun to have a logical component. When I was working on the Eden video game with Interplay Entertainment, AI was core to creating these artificially intelligent plants that can grow on the blockchain. These trees and flowers that can grow without, as they say, without a pre-planned narrative. They kind of grow and evolve on their own. I love this idea that agents can actually create their own stories and create things that we did not expect at all. So I think as more video game companies start to implement agents and large language models into their video games, we're just going to have more evolutionary projects, really, things that are just totally new and unexpected, more novel, and of course, more discoveries.
Great. Yeah, I'm excited for all these new game stuff. Joe, what do you think about this?
I mean, like Jay said, AI has been there for a while. I remember, I don't know if you guys had a Commodore 64, any of you guys, but there was a game called Raid on Bungling Bay or Bungling Bay. We said Bungling. I don't know how it's supposed to be pronounced, but it was super interesting because we noticed when you're flying around your helicopter bomb and stuff, that the ships and things that your enemies were constructing, to come and kill and destroy your city, were always different. It was super interesting because if you watched them, it was like, wait, they're actually doing stuff. And if you read interviews from the guy who created it, Will Wright, who later created The Sims, right, that's what got him into it. That he got so interested in simulating these things happening that weren't really supposed to be part of the game, that he just totally got his mind into that and ended up going that route. Super cool. The thing that I think, and particularly being a software guy and a blockchain guy, that would benefit the use of AI in games is adding determinism and or provable, transparent history, so that when, let's say it's a competitive game, or let's say something like No Man's Sky, would it not be amazing if that planet that you discovered, I mean, it is registered, but if it was provably deterministically generated and not just, right, you happen to be a person we like, so we kind of flipped our random number generator to give you something extra special, right? With blockchain, you can not only record the event history, but you can also prove the unpredictability of the things that are going to happen, which should,
right,
you could make it more fun that way, essentially.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's a super good point.
Greg, yeah, do you have something you wanted to add? It sounded like you had a good idea.
Oh geez, this whole, so first off, before I went into blockchains and after I was in a punk band for a while, I taught myself how to code basically early neural networks and sort of got into it. So this is a home topic for me. I absolutely love this subject, but the idea of reinforcement learning based agents combined with large language models, or as the case may be, generative models that do images, right? Like, because we can think of it like, image to image could be the rendering engine of the future as well, right? You might take a step and instead of having some deterministic program decide what you see based on what some designer built, or even what some procedural generation mechanism that is a lot dumber built, right? It could generate the next frame that it expects you to see. making the worlds that you see a lot easier to render at scale. So you could have bigger, broader worlds because of this. The other thing that I think would be really neat with this would be the ability to have persistent worlds that your character stays in, regardless of whether or not you're personally looking through their eyes, right? Like imagine turning off No Man's Sky, but instead of you logging out, your character continues to do what you would probably do, just based on the model that you're generating from the history that you've got. So that you are persistently in the world, and you can leave like sort of incentives for it to do certain things, and then when you come back, your character has been living in the world, right?
That's interesting. Like, I wonder if it would get to the point where people wouldn't know if you're actually online, or if it's your AI you that's taken over or something.
So you can eat more healthy also in
That's
the game
why,
world. And,
yeah.
That'd be.
Yeah.
I feel like that's also awful that if I'm a really lazy video gamer, then my guy, when I'm not there, is also going to be really lazy, and we're both going to be doing nothing.
Right. Well, that could go wrong too, right? Like that could be real bad. You could end up like, where the hell am I, and why am I naked, right?
Hey, we're solving gold farming sweatshops. That's what we're doing. This is for the good of humanity.
Yeah, there it is. Lisa, any thoughts on this? Or even like, I was thinking about this too. Like, the unpredictability is scary to me, and also like to other people watching the game with me. Like, it may go routes that may not be suitable for some people, or might not be something I want like other people in the room seeing. If there's like kids or whatever else, like, does any of this, like, is there a scary side of this stuff?
Of AI in general? I mean, so I was kind of avoiding the question because it was gaming specific, and I'm not a gamer.
Yeah.
But I think AI can be useful in a lot of things. I mean, I've heard, especially in like customer service, or, some of the like, refilling my prescription. Like, I don't really need to talk to a human. I can do, punch the number, hit an AI, talk to an AI that's friendly, and not somebody who's grumpy and mad that they're, doing their job, a tedious job or something like that. So I think, and, repetitive tasks, those kind of things, I think there's a place for AI, of course, and maybe some computer learning could be helpful. But, I don't know about engaging your kids with AI. I don't know that that's really healthy. I think that could be a slippery slope for sure.
Yeah,
I did see an article recently where they had the military had slipped and said, "Oh, this AI program, we did a test, and this AI came back and killed the person because it was trying to get more points or something."
Yes, it did.
And the person stopped them from getting more points. And then they said, then the next article came out and said, "Oh, no, just kidding. We were just simulating that what would happen if you did this." But that really didn't happen. So I don't think we'll ever know. But
if you had the lowest bidder writing that code, that would probably be what you would get.
It was a tabletop exercise too. They didn't even write a model. They just like war gamed out the worst case scenarios, right? Yeah.
So of course it can be dangerous, and
there has to have been a psyop. It is so obviously dumb that anybody involved in it is like, okay, guess what, guys? We won't code the rules that way. Guess what? And for it to come out all the way to the major press, it's a psyop. They want us to know that for when they make the mistake and accidentally kill some of us. That's what they do.
I totally agree, Joe. Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That happened actually a couple months ago in Japan. They had 4 AI soldiers or bots, like the Boston Dynamics, but dangerous. And they started to lose it, and the scientists shut down 3, but 1 was able to kill, I think, 12 of them, like scientists and soldiers.
Jeez.
Which is terrible, right? Which is terrible. But it went and was reactivating the other robots that they shut down, and it linked into their systems and started to rewrite the code to upgrade the bots that it was bringing back. And this just like came out in Japanese news and some others, and then they shut it down. And we never heard about it in the United States. But that's horrifying. And that was just one
So would that be a safety thing? That's a question for you guys. The whatever the AI is would have to not be able to have access to writing any of the program.
Well, the problem with that is a classic one in AI, right? The containment problem. Right? You get a smart enough machine, it figures out things that human beings can't anticipate. The classic example is, well, if we have a super intelligent AI, we can keep it locked up in a Faraday cage, air gap from the internet, and everything will be fine. Well, what we don't anticipate is that the machine algorithm itself will figure out, okay, if I flip these switches and these switches on this chip in a particular sequence, I can create a signal that cuts right through the Faraday cage and writes information to a nearby computer. Like that is plausible for these models to be able to learn to do, because essentially all they're doing is they're taking past inputs to generate future ones. And so trying to lock it out of its own code base, for example, might seem to work, but also trying to do that and thinking that we've got it working is exactly how it's going to get through the firewall and rewrite its own code base before we realize.
Yeah, and some of the more interesting stories in AI are the totally unexpected ways that it solves problems. Like, say, I remember a very early one was an attempt to use genetic algorithms, pretty simple stuff, to build something generating a certain waveform, right? And say, okay, they were training it to develop this waveform, and the one of the populations, one of the solutions was totally unexpected. They expected it to build a waveform, but what this one did is it actually found that there was some RF contamination or something, and it was using already existing waveforms to generate the waveform they wanted from radio free. It was kind of crazy because it shouldn't have theoretically.
Oh, they'll cheat. Right?
Yeah,
like they're actually experts at finding cheats.
Yeah, it's awesome. So
yeah,
no moral compass in AI.
Yep.
Well,
and
exactly.
and that's the other thing. Right. The scary part of it is that our own government, and if we went back 20 years maybe, and we knew what the reality is today, that every single device we have is owned, that you purchased it, but guess what? You don't own it. Your own government is listening to you, is watching you, is doing whatever damn well they please with your info, data, and reality. And the problem is all of those back doors are readily available to any AI that might happen to find them. And there's going to be plenty of, they've essentially purposely created holes in especially the most important tech that we have in the world that could really be dangerous if AI.
Right. Especially if they intentionally set up an AI, basically a panopticon guard, right? That can look at everybody all at once through the systems that they currently only monitor when they're interested.
That's sort of already being done with, if you follow some of the conferences like Black Hat and DEF CON and stuff, where people are throwing everything at the wall to see what they can get to break. You have now a new way of automating that process. Like, hey, hammer on this from every angle, flip all the switches, see if you can get side channel attacks, see if something happens unexpected with magnetic interference that induces data onto a circuit that it's not supposed to. And they're coming out with results, and it's fucking weird and scary. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it's, and ultimately I think the fact of the matter is we're going to have to just sort of learn to stop worrying and love the bomb, because it's the genie's already out of the bottle, to mix metaphors.
Yep.
I like that metaphor. I've never heard that before. I'm gonna start using it. Let's go on to the next question.
Because Sean hasn't answered that one yet. That's why we shouldn't.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Sean. I didn't know you had more you wanted to add too.
No, I didn't.
Oh, sorry. You talked in order for a while there at the end.
No, they went off on a tangent about stuff.
Okay, Sean.
But I think it's good and terrible. I think AI is the biggest thing in human history. In universal history, it could be. if there are no aliens, if it's just us out here, that means that this is the first sentient life that would ever have been created. Basically, will be on par with God. So God made one sentient life form, and now we're going to make a sentient life form. It's unbelievable when you really think about it. And then there's so many moral questions, so many ethical questions, so it's never been fathomable. You know, we've never thought, oh, we'll create a sentient being in humankind. Um, but as far as games go, I think because of that, I think a game created by AI is shit. It's a terrible idea. Um, and the things that AI would need to be able to understand, I don't want it to understand. Like passion, greed, all that kind of stuff. Just evil, all those things that go into, you know, because you're fighting evil usually in a game, and you're a good guy, so it would have to be super evil in order to you know to understand super evil, and go to really dark places to create those scenarios.
Well,
Which I don't want AI to understand that before we go to the other side and really pump in lots of ethics and
well,
all the positive stuff first.
here's the thing, Sean, about your point, which I think is a really good one, but one to keep in mind when we're thinking about AI, right? We really run a dangerous risk if we anthropomorphize it too much, right? Like if you met, for example, a super intelligent spider, it would still be a spider, right? Like first off, ick, right? Who would want to meet that thing? But I wouldn't want to spend any time with it myself.
See, that's where I'm going to get real weird in this episode, and I told you
because intelligence is not the same thing as humanity, right?
That's a great line, dude. I'm not. See, I've been watching a lot of fucking Star Trek, and when I knew this was coming up, I was like, my mind is not in the right place for this. I'm going to freak everyone out, because if you had a alien who's human-like, but they just got a ridge, then you know you fall in love with it. It's you're the same. They got 4 ridges, and now they got a couple feathers. They got some dots. There comes a point when it is a spider, and when looks don't matter if that's all surface shit. If the person and what's inside and the emotional attachment is the main thing about connection and love, then why are you saying ooh ick? You know that's
well, it's like when you get catfished by a 4-rigid catfished by a 4-rigid spotted alien spider, right? That's you know.
Well, the problem is that it's not that it would be immoral or evil or good or moral, right? It's that it's amoral, right? It doesn't have a concept of morality except for what we teach it to emulate.
Think about Cyrano de Bergerac, but it's a spider person instead of a guy with a big nose.
Yeah. Well, and Greg, I mean, I think what you're describing is our pretty much the all of the world leaders, right? I mean, it's like we're dealing with that in reality. Super smart, super resourceful. They essentially have unlimited money, and they are amoral. So that's what we're already dealing with. So maybe we could use AI against them.
Right, but you guys have played Universal Paperclip, right? Like you know what I'm talking about. It doesn't necessarily have terminal goals that line up with how it interacts with people. Right, its terminal goals could just be whatever that we program it with, and that could end up being especially scary the smarter it gets, right? Because it could just decide like, you know, I need more matter, and there's all these meat bags walking around.
And you know, I do know there are questions.
Matter. It's a very convenient source.
Questions later that do hit some of this too. So
we don't have to cover every.
Back to the games, though. I think that when it comes to the games, where AI would be amazing right now is like NPCs. Because it's not the main storyline, and it would make every game a little bit more just different than a regular game out of the box. You know, they would have more leeway to if you went through the game and you know I hate kids, aren't kids terrible? Then all of a sudden all NPCs would be like, man, kids are terrible. Maybe the game would have less kids in it. You know, something like that is cool. And whoever brought up The Sims, that is that's an awesome idea for you know a lot of AI in a game. That's something that you completely build. It's more on you than on, you know, the developer or someone else. But I think NPCs would be great. I can think of Skyrim with some AI and the side quests and things like that. Perfect. But a lot more nuancy stuff than just writing an entire game would be good. Like a nice AAA, you're immersed. It really pulls at the heartstrings or at the whatever. That's I don't think good for now at all where we're at with AI.
Great. All right, let's go on to the next question here. We have how can artificial intelligence enhance the security and scalability of blockchain technology, and what potential applications can arise from combining these two technologies? I'm going to mix it up, and I figured might want to start in the middle here. Joe, I feel like this is a great question for you. How can AI help us with security and scalability in blockchain technologies?
The one, I mean, the big thing I think that would be useful, and it would be useful both for security, depending on how what your context is. Is it to prevent cheating? Is it to prevent having some type of cheat tool, or and particularly because we're all remote now. Games are not played in person anymore. The video games, right? It should already have been in place, and we've been talking about this for years, to provide the ability to prove independently that you're not being cheated, right? And people should want that. And if I see you're a character and there's a tournament, do you really have the history? Do you really have the weapons that you have? Do what's if I could look at it at the chain and see how you leveled up, how you developed that history. If I could look at the chain and see that there's no way that either of us could have determined the seed for the setting, right? That stuff should be useful, and that's all security related. Scalability, typically the games, they've solved the scalability for games. What they haven't solved, if you were to go and ask someone at CoinDesk or something, is scalability for blockchain related to games. But I think we have, right? So, I mean, I know we can do more transactions on a blockchain than any game out there would ever need. So you combine these two technologies. I mean, proof that something happened independent, and also the ability to provide something that is an improvement on your typical random number generator, to provide randomness in game or unpredictability to certain parts of the game, right?
Lisa, anything you want to add to this? I
am going to be giving this a guess or a reach, but it's my understanding that the two things here are security and scalability. The security thing, I don't think AI can improve on that. I think that's all blockchain. AI might be able to check the blockchain, but you're really leaning on blockchain for security. As far as scalability, AI could be used in that manner, because scalability would be, improving your resources or whatever. So, you could use it for customer service or getting that process done more quickly, kind of like a clearinghouse thing, I would think, for AI. But that's kind of all I've got to throw in the pot there.
Okay. Greg.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Here's my two. I'll try to limit it to two things, because I have so many ways this could be used. Right. One of my favorite ways for scalability to be considered is, I don't know if you guys have played around with Stable Diffusion too much out there, but if you have, you might remember that there's this thing called a seed, where you can take the phrase that you use to generate an image, and you combine it with the seed that it generates when it generates the image. And with the prompt and that seed, you can recreate the exact same image. That could be used to generate arbitrary or regenerate arbitrary files, right? So you could store, an HD movie, if you could generate one from a seed phrase and the seed in a single transaction in a text field on a block, and it would be super efficient. Like, you get around the gigantic problem of how do we store rich media on the blockchain when blockchains are kind of limited in how you can do that? So that would really help with scalability, right? As far as security goes, one of my favorite ways to think about this is in terms of supporting it through a system like Rivet, right? So what we one of the things that we deal with is like we get a ton of queries all at once that tend to come in right at the beginning of a block. People want to know right away what's in the block, and they're looking for specific stuff. Now, some of them don't need that real fast, and AI can tell based on the context of the query whether or not they need a fast response, and spread out that load across that query set, reducing the cost and thereby increasing the security by basically making it possible to spread out the expense of securing a block. You could have essentially with support systems a way to keep fees suppressed or gas fees suppressed without having to compromise on security, for example, which would be one way you could think of it. And there are a ton of other little hacks like that where without even having to do anything crazy, like come up with a new type of consensus proof based on AI, right, which somebody might jump to. That's just like one way to think about it. But scalability and security are kind of one and the same in blockchains in a way too. So just a couple examples, but it's basically in need of sort of massive input from people who want to create. Like there are things I can't imagine that you could do.
Yeah, that sounds pretty amazing. Sean, anything you want to add to this one?
I think some of the main ways is just that it doesn't sleep. It's it's always on the job 24/7. As far as security goes, it's also not lazy. So many things that happen with security when it comes to like exchanges and other things are just people didn't do what they're supposed to do. They didn't put stuff on a cold wallet when they were supposed to. They didn't they didn't check certain things when they're supposed to, and but it's been like that forever. When it comes to hackers and scammers, they really prey on human laziness and people just not do following security protocols. Right. Calling up and, hey, this is John from, accounting. I forgot my password,
Yeah, your AI is certainly not going to fall asleep during the code audit.
Are you going to come down here and just like, what's your password? Oh, it was all in my folder that I lost. You want to come down, downstairs and come to my office? And they're like, nah, I don't want to come down there. Your password's whatever. All laziness, so it wouldn't do that. Plus, like I said, it's always on the job. It's always looking for certain things, and also it's like if there's certain patterns that it's looking for that are shady, it's not going to think twice. It's going to like, that was 3 shady things that this person's doing, and then they go and check the account out, where other people might not be there, might have the laziness factor, or just might hesitate. So those are some of the things that come to mind for me.
The AI unbiased part is nice. Dave, anything you want to add to the security and scalability within blockchain and AI? You gotta press the button.
Yeah, I had to press the button. Only a little bit. A lot of it's already been hit already. Talking about, for example, code audits, I think is the most straightforward example that where you could have AI bring security in. Because it's amazing to me, especially in the sort of explosion of DeFi that we saw a year or two back, where people were just taking any jackass's word on the internet for, the code's safe. It was audited by Wolfskin Man 37 or something. You know what I mean? So the idea that you could have a proven AI model that its whole purpose is to validate code or look for problems. I mean, blockchain is one thing, but smart contracts, a lot of these tokens are built on contracts where the contract itself, yeah, sure, is secured by the blockchain directly. I think that's what Lisa was talking about. That part, to me, is less interesting than auditing code and auditing contracts, because a lot of these tokens, even the meme coins and stuff like that, if you're into those things, they're just someone's contract on that blockchain, which the contract is the point of vulnerability to me. So I would much rather have an AI, a model with a proven track record auditing code and looking for flaws and vulnerabilities than some guy who says it's fine. So there's that, and then what's that, Sean?
Another amazing example of human stupidity is that during that
plenty of those.
During that time, especially, I would review a project or look at them, and all these projects, they were they would like send it off to get evaluated, and they'd have it up there, like it's been audited by Cert K, it's been audited here, and they'd have it up there so people see that and they think, oh, it's this is safe, oh, this is good. But all you got to do is click on the certification, and it's like, this is the worst project ever. Everyone thought that just because it was audited meant it was good, but
Right.
no one ever thought to just look at the audit.
The audit report is like, this is full of security holes and it's bullshit and everybody's going to get scammed.
So many, I click on it and it's like, oh, completely failed this, completely failed that, completely failed that. But they actually put it on the website.
Yeah.
Oh,
you could have the deployer system itself do an AI audit and not even allow exploitable code to be uploaded, right?
Yeah, and it's just interesting to me that it could potentially find an unknown or a novel or a 0 day that people hide stuff in code all the time, and it's like there's even contests every year for who can have the most innocuous looking code that is malicious and actually absolutely deadly. And so being able to have something run through it that's not, I think that's a uniquely machine learning advantage to security.
Especially because some of those we might see with the advent of AI more complex forms of 0 day. They might find things that would be not very easily found. Very interesting combinations of
like the road signs that you can put stickers on that you can trick a visual scan from a self-driving car to like run the stop sign, for example.
Or even some of the stuff that Joe, I know you've mentioned before about the potential for with complexity of cryptographic systems, the potential for someone to hide vulnerabilities in there that nobody understands it enough to see. To look for stuff like that. If you got 24 people on planet Earth that understand ZK snarks enough to see where there might be a vulnerability, that's a little bit iffy. I can see somebody not being comfortable with that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And Jay, finally, we'll get to you on this question. What do you think about AI with blockchain stability and security?
So, I mean, traditionally with audits of a smart contract, people are auditing their smart contract with Certic after it's already been uploaded and the smart contract is autonomous. So people are exposing their money to all these vulnerabilities, but by having AI actually audit your smart contracts and your code before you upload it, that's great. It saves you thousands of dollars, saves you a lot of time. And now everyone, just like how we have access to Solidity compilers, the AI is able to even write the Solidity code. It's able to write the documentation, the white paper. It's able to assist you in the entire creation of a project. So as far as security, it's like everyone says, it's able to find those vulnerabilities before they actually happen. And you can even write your unit tests and help you actually really test your smart contract before it's deployed and live.
Can I? You got to imagine if we had ChatGTP in at its current level in 2015, if the DAO hack would have even happened.
Yeah, and that's why I've said in the past that the model, like Ethereum's model, of an EVM and a decentralized EVM, is both a huge weakness and a strength. And it's a weakness because I can see all the code. It's a strength because like open source, I can see all the code, so other people will hopefully find flaws. The issue, though, is laziness of humans. And so AI might, like you say, might be able to solve that, because if you look at the DAO hack, whether you believe him or not, it was seemingly pretty much an accident or is a public function that somebody could have just called. Anybody could have called and nobody had, right? And the fact that this guy did is pretty interesting, and that, such a large amount of money was thrown in without these people who threw the money in actually looking at the damn code is pretty freaking, and I had, I think, $300 or $400 worth of Ethereum in it. And I was all smiles when it broke, because I was like, it's the law. It is, it is its own contract. I love it.
Right. The exploit itself was just a loophole in the law that was properly exploited.
Yeah. No, and I'm not a friend of Vitalik, and I didn't have millions in it, so I can understand why they might fork Ethereum after this. But as far as I was concerned, it was a sin and a massive negative point in the history of blockchain that they forked after that, because it was definitely financial related and good buddy related, right? Please fork this, Vitalik. Please get behind
Right.
forking it. Sufficiently decentralized, money under the table, whatever. Anyway,
That's why ETH Classic is still the original, right?
yeah, I still, for that reason, I love it, even though people, hate the
Dude, I
fact
love
that,
ETH Classic, man.
yeah, it's awesome.
There's one real quick. I won't take much time, but I think it's important also to talk not just about smart contracts. Lisa was talking about the security of blockchain systems themselves and these networks fundamentally, which is, to me, the most important thing. And with AI, we're talking about data and correlation and pattern recognition. And the pattern recognition and learning the implications of those patterns rapidly, I think, is really important. Because if you think about consensus and you think about the different approaches to consensus that different blockchains take, whether it be proof of work or proof of stake, things like that, there's potentially much better security with something as vigilant and not lazy, like you guys were talking about, that's watching markets. Even if you have marketplace-based Sybil resistance as your model, where okay, it's too expensive to attack it unless you go super slow. Well, how do you see it if it goes super slow and super low, and it takes a long time? This is something
AI
that
would be the ultimate staker, right?
Right. So this is something that an AI operating on the network is going to always be awake and is going to have this long-term overview of all accounts everywhere, especially transparent blockchains, where you start seeing like, okay, there's a correlation or there's a pattern here that could potentially lead to a 51% attack, and somebody might be being sneaky. And it's something that maybe a human could never, or would have a very hard time catching. So I think there's definitely a place on the base layer, fundamental consensus layer of the network too, as a guardian watchdog kind of thing.
That's a great point, man. That's a really good point.
We can't give AI all the credit. If I make a AI that catches something cool, I want a statue of me and not a statue of the AI. That's what I want. Let's go on to the next question. How can blockchain help in the fight against deep fakes? Jay, you want to kick this one off for us?
Yeah, so I'll say a year ago, I was an early beta tester for OpenAI's DALL-E 2. And in the onboarding process, there were 3 rules. 1, do not give it a picture of a face. Try to recreate a human person, deep fake. 2, no NFTs. Do not use the actual image generation to create NFTs. And 3, there's a watermark on the image. Don't remove the watermark. You have to attribute that this was created with AI. I feel like since then, people have just been creating pictures with AI. They're not saying this is AI. We're getting fooled. And the fact that, the news are circulating pictures of bombings by the Pentagon or the Pope wearing a puffer jacket or something. It's kind of funny that there isn't this sense that, hey, this was made by AI, but blockchain could actually solve this problem, or we can verify. We can say that, hey, this is a digital image and it's verified as real, or maybe verified as AI generated. This idea of a digital signature, I think, could be very helpful. And that's a possibility with AI and blockchain.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Greg, do you want to go next for us?
Yeah, sure.
That way we'll keep the order kind of fun.
Well,
go ahead, Greg.
Setting aside the fact that I think that people have probably been overly trusting of video and images in digital media for way too long. I mean, before we had sort of the democratization of altered images and altered video, we had Photoshop, and a trained professional, a highly paid professional, could make a fake of anything. Right? It didn't matter. We've had that ability for the last 15 years, and people just go on trusting it. So I think to a certain degree, like, the fight against deepfake is really, more of a protectionist move by a profession that wants to keep the realistic fakes that they can lie about to themselves, right? But setting that aside, I think that you could do some pretty interesting things with like steganography behind images, where like if you connected, so if you put like the block hash of the block that this was actually created in from the address that it was created into the image embedded behind it using a steganographic technique, and that was just something that the image generator did without even alerting necessarily the creator, then you could have a sort of a hidden signature built into every single image generated, for example.
I just Googled that word. It's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing. Sean, any thoughts on deep fakes and blockchain helping us fight against them?
Muted.
Nothing? Okay. No. Yeah, you're muted, Sean.
And that's all I'll ever say on that matter. I think it'd be easier to prove the creation of it if it's on blockchain, right? Because you could just pull that information up if it's transparent. That would be like the main thing. Yeah, I guess that's it.
Cool. Dave, anything you want to add to that?
What incentive is there to do deep fakes on blockchain, though? If you're trying to get away with something, what incentive is there to do it on chain?
Well, if you're trying to get away with this, we're talking about protecting against that, right?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, for the scammer, like, what would be the reason to do it on chain?
Well, actually, there might be one because what I was going to talk about is, and this isn't even specific to deepfakes. Somebody showed me a picture of Lee Harvey Oswald playing in his band, and they told me they were trying to tell me that this picture is of him after the assassination of JFK, right? Trying to say like, oh, here's evidence of a conspiracy. Here's Oswald playing with his band after the thing. It's all a big hoax, right? Which, great. That is a genuine photo. That is not a deep fake. That is an actual photograph of him. What I don't know, though, is when it was taken. I don't have this proof of when or this timestamp that's on, for example, a Bitcoin blockchain could provide. So I guess you could use that concept to try to, people will listen to a lot of things if you make it sound fancy. And so you could use blockchain as a way to trick people into saying, oh, no, this is timestamped on the blockchain at this time. So it was created before this event, which predicts that, right? There's a lot of hoops that people will jump through to make something sound really convincing. So when you add, even if it's a lie, if you add proof to something in a sleight of hand way, it could maybe facilitate fraud. If you then spam that out to enough people, trying to sell car warranties to people, somebody will bite, that kind of thing. Phishing,
risking exposing the fraud to gain the reliability of when it was created.
Yeah, so like if you send it to 1,001 people and 1,000 people don't buy it, but the one person does, but they only bought it because they thought the proof thing was convincing. This is like email phishing attacks. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, this is obviously bullshit, but some people are just like, they don't have time to sit here and watch 2 hours of people like us discussing this thing on the internet. So they haven't thought about, oh, this actually doesn't prove what they're saying it proves. You know what I mean? A lot of people have a lot of things they're doing in their day that's important that they have to do, and they don't have time to war game all of this out to know how exactly to watch out for it. So they're gonna see stuff that maybe sounds convincing to them.
Well, and forensic reconstruction is the only thing that needs to really be preserved, right? As long as we can make it so that we can have an expert unravel a fake image if it causes trouble, right? That's really the key, because regular folks shouldn't be running around trusting digital images right now, right? Like technically there are 3 of us using deepfake like technology on this call at this very moment. I'm not actually sitting in front of a Starfield, right? Joe's background isn't blurry. Jay's not sitting where he's sitting because that would be really surreal, right? Like, but we're having
right down the middle though, we're all real.
For as far as we know, right?
You guys out on the fringes there.
Yeah. And it could be related to your thing about, with the seed and the prompt all embedded into a thing. You could have some sort of decompiler, like you have where you decompile a binary today. You could have some kind of AI image decompiler. I don't know. Maybe that could be a thing.
So
I'm
really,
sorry, Joe. What were you saying?
I was gonna say what we learned is that you don't need to go read books or anything. Just watch this show, and that's enough. Yeah, Joe, what are your thoughts on this?
In the end, it's all about, in my opinion, the way you can use blockchain to fight against the deep fake issue is provenance. That is proof that the sourcing is real, and blockchain has some pretty remarkable tools for time-based proof, number one, and the fact that you can independently look at data and analyze, in the very least, whether that data is as it was at that time, that it's, you can prove what it would cost someone to fake that what you're looking at, which is pretty remarkable technology when you look at it from that point alone, irrespective of all the meme coin token currency BS. That is remarkably useful for human history, right? And with it, you can use tools like steganography to tag those images so that you can trace them back, so you can find their source more easily. And you can also, and I've written a white paper about this for a customer that essentially established a consensus based upon a marketplace. So you had you had built-in scarcity, and you had a marketplace for provenance, and that is that you would have a piece of art, let's say, and experts could weigh in, non-experts could weigh in. You could provide, various types of other data and analyses, different types of scans of that physical artifact that could then all be on chain. So anybody could analyze it and say, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. And the consensus could be affected. And because you have scarcity there, you have, a hedge against what would, be spam or other fake, attempts to say this really is what I say it is, because you would have to put, and the main point when you do something like this is someone who is asserting that this is really an original of this particular artist has to put something at risk that is significant, because then when someone comes in and they can say, oh, geez, they put a lot of, there's $100,000 here in bounty. If I could prove that it's false, then and it becomes a built-in market economy. And on top of that, there are, anybody who lurks in 4chan poll enough knows that there are online tools available to find, I don't know what they call it, but it's a hazing effect on Photoshops. Like, say there's a bunch of evidence that
you can look for digital artifacts that are tiny in
like there as Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and I don't know whether the images themselves are, but some of the images that were officially put out of her were photoshopped, and it's kind of like, whoa. And that's why I know about those tools. You could use AI to to automatically apply tools, and whoever built the better AIs would get credit and probably some economic advantage for doing that. So that's how you prevent deepfakes. And the interesting thing, though, counter to what Sean was saying, is the reason that you would use blockchain isn't the guy that is using the deepfake. It's going to be the people who have important, sensitive, valuable info or pictures. So let's say you're the U.S. government, right? You should damn well be putting every fucking thing on chain. The reason they don't want to is because there's a ton of corruption they don't want on chain. But
well, they don't necessarily want people to know for sure that this is the draft that they released, because they like to lie about that later if people hate it.
Yeah, they will lie about it later. They'll erase it. They'll do all types of shit. But and if you were a big corporation, you should be putting every damn thing on chain so you can prove, no, we didn't say that. That's not the real video. This is the real video. We can prove it.
This is our official position. It's linked to this block. You can check it. You can see it.
And you think about it, if every communication, if every image they put out, if every marketing decree they put out, terms and conditions were all on chain, when someone said, look what they did, they'd be able to say, bullshit. show me on our chain where that is. It would be on chain. It isn't.
Right,
It's
like
not real.
if Anheuser-Busch had put the contract they made with that influencer on chain, then for example, there could be no
And
BSing about exactly how it went down.
And the issue with humans is that they're lazy and or so self-interested. They're not open-minded enough because, a perfect example of this is some of the supposed issues with Twitter on people getting hacked accounts or anything else that it is freaking old tech, doesn't even need blockchain for them to be signing their damn messages. So you would know, oh, he didn't really tweet that. That's not really his account, whatever else. And they're not interested. It's crazy.
Right.
My,
and I think that's like
in a very
the heart
way.
of it.
Like my thing told me, hey, this thing you wanted to buy is on sale. You want me to put it in your cart? I said, yes, put it in the cart. And it said, all right, that one was a silent one. But asked me to fart another way.
Duh.
I was like, what? And it just made, that was a wet one. Seriously, I muted it while I was doing this. But that was, it's listening. It knows what we're talking about. It's silly.
I think the key thing with deepfakes that everybody needs to keep in mind, and I just want to throw this in before we move on, is there's no substitution for human skepticism, right? We have to be skeptical of what we see, and that has to be our default state. Blockchains maybe can help us prove if we need to prove something is real, but ultimately you should be looking at everything you see on your screen with a healthy dose of I'm not sure if this is real or not.
Lisa, before we move on, do you want
patiently been waiting?
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Deepfake is like my wheelhouse, but the using blockchain to prevent it, I think that Eternalize this does a great job using blockchain to validate and using blockchain to timestamp. But I also, you guys taught me about the signing party or the key signing party thing, and having those cross-reference points. So having multiple points, and I think AI could be used for this. And there was a guy or a project that contacted me about they were using something for using social media and using blockchain because people are tired of getting all this fake news and not knowing what's real and whatever. And so they were going to use like social media, real people, and tokenize it, monetize it, whatever. But they would use GPS, like some kind of key signing or verification, like somebody else had to validate that you were also there somehow. And what was that? There was some other third validation that like your video was real, so people knew, and then news stations or whatever could purchase that, and they knew it was real video that really happened at that location, whatever. So I think those kind of things could only be validated with blockchain, location, time, and that confirmation with multiple people, and that could only be done in a way that's safe to keep people anonymous. We know what happened with Julian Assange, and that's the only way we're going to get the truth out now. So right. I think it's and we've been talking about pictures and documents, but we're moving into the Internet of Things time where everything's going to be tokenized. We're in this digital world. Gary Gensler even said that we've been on a digital dollar, that the US dollar is digital. To quote,
you're going to have to tokenize it with his CBDC.
Elf. Yes.
Or Jamie Dimons. Excuse me. Jamie Dimons.
We all know whose CBDC it is. Yeah. But but we're moving into and like Joe was explaining, we're going to have to be able to trust those. Is that a deep fake of that thing that's being presented to us that we're going to trade for on the internet? And not just a picture of it, but a thing. And so all of those validations are going to have to be made. And so I think that's where this is going to be, where the deep fake's going to have to be.
I do, by the way, as a
3D printed
aside, I do think one of the threats that they consider, I originally thought it was just the banks and the bankers and money, right? Oh, they're afraid of the US dollar collapsing because of this technology. the more I see it, the more I think they're actually afraid of the historical significance of the tech. That, imagine if they did use this, or if we did use this. How many of the videos and or pictures of Biden do you think are deep fake?
Well, think about it like this. I feel like the
I
thing
would
that
love
they
to talk
really
current
want.
events, but we got to get going, guys. We are running out of time. We dove into this one really hard. Sorry, Sinfully
Did Jay get to
Cerebral.
answer?
Yeah, he kicked it off.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's all right. I got everybody covered. Yeah, this was it. Unfortunately, though, this is the first episode we've ever had that has actually been sponsored. So we have to play this ad before we go out. Can you go ahead and play the ad? Yeah. Yeah, it's the first one sponsored.
I so want all these.
Introducing Apple Vision Pro. The era of spatial computing is here.
Oh, look at this block. It's a block. Point, click. Here we go. Faster! Where am I? I've never seen this. Apple, we're in your brain. Yeah, so
Still want
this
one.
was, we were sponsored. We got, money's coming in. Greg and I are the same breed here. If you give us money, we're gonna do something for you. So there it is.
I love how that visual at the end was a rip directly out of, like, it's the Gibson from Hackers, basically displayed on the front of it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, they paid me with broken Apple headphones, so not really anything's going to come of it. Great. Also, I feel like we should count Sinfully Cerebral's question in what we've asked, because his question was basically, how optimistic are you about humanity's ability to navigate the path ahead without succumbing to a doomsday scenario? I think that's basically what we discussed.
Highly optimistic. Highly optimistic about it. I am.
I think that's basically what this show was about. Was we're kind of screwed, but
can I answer that? I'm optimistic. I think our best bet as humanity is a collapse. So I'm hoping that the incompetence of our leaders does lead to a collapse, because that really is probably the only way out of the slavery that we're in.
There you go.
I agree.
All right.
Positive.
Well, we got to end the show. If you want to answer that question during your time to sign off, feel free. If not, go ahead. Dave, if you want to kick this one off for us, you want to plug whatever you want.
Sure, yeah. I'll plug Den Social like I always do. We're going to have a governance call at 3 p.m. Eastern today. So swing by. We can talk about that stuff. And we have layer creation open. It's free to make layers on Den Social, but there are rules, and it's kind of a game, and you got to have community support. And there's phases. So the phase is that you can go suggest a new community this week. And if you have an idea for that, go do it.
Jay, anything you'd like to plug or let people know about?
Well, hey, after seeing that Apple Vision Pro commercial, I mean, over at the Mirror Vision Gallery in Decentraland, I have Algorithmic Eyewear, an NFT collection on display, as well as the Monochronicle Expo featuring 13 international artists. So that's in Decentraland, 729, right by Binance.
Great. Greg, anything you want to plug or say?
Yeah, I would say if you guys haven't tried it yet, go sign up for Chat GTP and write some code with it, because you can actually, with very little effort now, get your ideas into deployable code. And if you want to build something on a blockchain that Rivet supports, Polygon, etc., Ethereum, it'll generate the code from your idea, and you can test it, and it can work. And you don't even have to be able to write it anymore. You just have to have an idea. So go build it, and we can help.
There you go. Lisa, anything you'd like to plug or let people know about?
Yeah, hopefully everybody within the sound of my voice can get to Peoria, Illinois on June 23rd and meet us for the Happy Hour Roadshow. We'll be talking crypto and freedom, and at Peoria Pizza Works, 3 p.m.
There you go. Joe, anything you want to say to the people listening?
Probably, given all the stuff, I'm putting this down there, legalfund.dragonchain.com. We're not pushing it too heavily yet, but everything going on in the crypto world with the SEC going after Coinbase and Binance and Ripple and Dragon Chain. I hope that a lot more of the projects realize we're all in this sinking boat together,
Right.
or that we're all going to end up needing to set up shop somewhere outside the U.S., the land of the free.
Every
Because,
unit of value donated, guys, goes against the big fat bald baby man and his terrible agenda. So
right, and all of them. I mean, 'cause it's I do believe we're going to win.
Greg, I told you
but
stop calling me that. Get some money.
but it does cost. It does
That's
cost a lot of
shade.
money. So, and we've
Gensler.
already spent millions, literally millions of dollars dealing with what objective evil. If ever was something in the actual world, if demons exist, they are paid by your tax dollars right now. They have unlimited funds, and they tell us it's like, oh, anything we ask for, they have all of our data, but anything we ask for is like, that's a little bit too far. We really don't have time for that with our unlimited $2 billion budget. So we don't need millions. We just need thousands, or if you can give a recurring contribution, it'll be put to good use. There's plenty of ideas too. If anybody has any ideas on how this could be arranged in a DAO, or somebody has an applicable nonprofit that we could essentially say, well, let's just point it to that so people can have a tax write-off. We're open to it. So anyway.
You know what I'll commit to that's an idea, I think, is maybe we can work on you accepting Oxen, but I will switch the payout address to my Oxen service node to your legal fund. That's what I'll do.
I should say we do accept on the page. You can Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, Bitcoin Cash, Monero, all types, right? And if anybody has something like, hey, I happen to have a bunch of this. We would accept it because our attorneys will accept crypto, right? So they're totally open to that. They don't have any qualms at all with that. So anyway, cool. I hate to shill that. I'm not the best at begging or anything else, but we are going to need more money in the end, and we do have some strategic plans to help explode the visibility on the case as well, in time, but it's all timing. So,
well, I mean, and honestly, I feel like you guys need a big picture of the Gary Gensler-esque bald baby man, not
this is
not teasing Sean anymore, just to say that you guys should have some satire up there. There need to be some deep fakes of Gensler out there. I got some for you.
The SEC's been pretty unprofessional in their messaging lately. I don't think we need to do that too.
Sean,
I tend to fight blue, man.
On what Greg said, people did stuff on AOC, and it was attacked. So like in England, in America, that should be against the law, and then they actually went after people for doing that, and they scrubbed a lot of it from the internet, for specifically her. I remember that. Just people putting out memes. One little girl, she was like an 8-year-old little girl. She did a satire YouTube channel, and they shut her down. It's weird. So when it comes to doing deepfakes about government people, I think that's a dangerous thing to do. But I think it does. I agree with you. It does need to be done. Simply cerebral. Yes, I did shave. Why am I scary about going on Joe Rogan? And I can't. It was a comment that Sinfully Cerebral made that we're each going to need our own AI in the future. And I talked about this on a Truth Tuesday, me and Alicia's show, that they've when it comes to mRNA vaccinations and this DNA type medication stuff, it's already in meat. They can put it in there so you can get a dose or get vaccinated without knowing it, just eating a burger. But what they're doing now is developing it in plant life. So you'll just have a regular salad, and it's enough in the plant to replicate itself to create a full dose. in one serving of the vegetable, just grown in the dirt. It could even, I guess, be classified as organic because they're not going to use pesticides or anything like that. And
It's terrifying.
it is. I'll put the article in the chat for everybody. But yeah, that. So I had said to Lisa that there's so many things that they'll be able to do. We're actually going to have to have our own personal technology to be able to combat it. You literally have to scan your food before you eat it to know if something's in there, because there could be a mistake. Oh, McDonald's accidentally got this shipment of mRNA beef and they didn't know it, so it was served to 340,000 people. Just it was an accident. Sorry.
Is that true?
My biggest worry is that they're gonna like genetically modify mosquitoes or like wasps to just be injected.
Bill Gates has already done that. They already did that.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Well, let's get out of here so we can get to current events and we can talk about Bill Gates and his mosquito army. My name is John Branch and I've been your host today. I'm gonna pull up the ending stuff here. Great. Next week we are going to be talking about world blockchain in healthcare. So that'll be fun. That'll be exciting. This one's going to hit close for me too, so that'll be a lot of fun. Don't forget to share these episodes and invite people to comment and leave your questions for us to answer and talk about. We try to get through all of them. The more you share, the more our hosts and topic contributors will get, including you. Like, comment, subscribe, all those great fun things. We're going to play a video. We'll be right back with current events. Goodbye.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and secret proceedings. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed.
That was spooky. Fun show. We knew AI was going to be a lot. It was cool.
Yeah, that was interesting. I'm glad we did that one.
Yeah, it's a good call, man. Good topic.
Some good questions too in there. That was nice.
I still always feel like I'm catching. I mean, probably always will feel like I'm catching up. But like at first, I wasn't super interested in when DALL-E came out and stuff like that. But then as things got more and more interesting, I started paying attention, and now it's like, man, the pace of all this is crazy. It's interesting, man. It's keeping me really hooked.
Your prediction
was interested
3 years from feature-length movies generated by prompt.
Yeah, which I thought we were going to do. I wanted to do that.
One person at a time. Holy
I'm
crap.
thinking about the philosophical stuff and like, would I marry an AI person? Would I date one? Which I think now I would. Like I said, I've been watching a lot of Star Trek the past month. It's like what makes it real? If we create this life form, and then we can't control it, or else we're creating a slave race, and that's usually in sci-fi what leads to our demise, because we're at fault. We tried to control and make a slave race. We abused them, and then they end up destroying us.
Like BSG type stuff.
Yeah, I love that, Sean. You're like the wingman for society. You're gonna take one for the team so the AI doesn't kill us all. Because look, one of us married one of you, so we're friends.
Yeah,
that's how you join empires. Yeah.
There it is.
Can I make a prediction? Because I've been surprised that apparently some of the newer AI has been able to find an ability to generate humorous output, which was one of the things that was historically really hard because there's so many little nuances, right? I originally, when I first saw Dolly 2, it was on 4chan, and so it was like, where are they generating? And even some of the Stable Diffusion stuff. I was interested for the purposes of generating memes, right, or generating graphics for memes that can be useful because you apply an interesting, especially something that is that a human might not come up with, an image, with a concept that you have a really good potential for a meme. So my prediction is that these two, you have a nuanced humor that can actually be funny, that can also generate images that can tie into that nuanced humor, which a human a lot of times won't have the skill sets to do all of those together unless they're taking an historical or a real image that happens to align with what they want to say. That you should potentially see AIs generating very powerful. And here's the thing: there's going to be the danger, and I think that's probably one of the big reasons that OpenAI is so prone to censorship. Is there's the danger for the powers that be is truth. That humor typically requires truth or some element of truth, right? It requires and the fact that when you give, and I'm not going to get into some of the politics, but when you give an AI carte blanche, you just let it go, it's going to come up with a lot of offensive things that might be true, right? That a lot of people don't want to hear because they don't want the truth. And you imagine what the application you're going to end up with 4chan poll style craziness happening out of this.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's also an element of, and this is something we did not get a chance to talk about, but the thing that scares the powers that be the most about generative AI in particular is the ability to make realistic looking things become so pervasive, right? That if they can't come up with a way to audit it, then all of a sudden every single defendant in court who gets caught up on a CCTV cam is entitled to a defense that says, what if you made that with a generative AI, right? If they can't prove that, then video evidence out the window, right? That is a thing that terrifies them almost as much as immutable, irreversible transactions that they can't immediately appropriate without the consent of the person.
The worst part is they'll be the ones generating that fake image, and
I mean, I think they probably would, right? And there's certainly like what was it, the Rittenhouse case, for example. The prosecution tried to use an AI enhanced image to zoom in, and they actually got that excluded because the zoom in feature was zooming in on an upscaled image that they used an algorithm to upscale, right? Which you can't prove was doing anything other than giving the prosecutor what they wanted, as opposed to giving you an actual representation of what was going on. And I think that's something that is ultimately good, actually. If it makes if it makes officials have to prove things more thoroughly than just the flash in the pan of a video, I think we actually move the notion of justice forward.
And by the way, thus the reasoning for blockchain, both from the state, they should require blockchain records for anything they're using in court, but for the individual, frankly, the more we can put anything on chain personally, I would love if I could put my waypoints on chain when I'm driving, so I could prove that I wasn't speeding in court, right? With blockchain data, it's like it costs. I think a judge would listen to that. It's like it would be $3 billion for someone to fake this data. He's lying, right? It's like, okay, we should all be doing that.
I'm working on mine right now. I've got my Legos going, so we'll see what comes of that.
Right.
Yeah, that was one of the things that got me really hooked into what you invented, I guess, Joe, was as a Bitcoiner and a huge Bitcoin proponent, I didn't really see anybody talking about what you were doing with Bitcoin, which was using it to prove non-money related data, just arbitrary data on the Bitcoin blockchain, and using the same security that Bitcoin has to prove whatever you want to prove. Like maybe you can't necessarily prove what, like you can prove that something's been, it's like a tamper seal to me. It's like a digital tamper seal on a piece of data where you can see if something's been tampered with after a certain block height, right? And that is so freaking, just the objectivity of that is so amazingly valuable that either people don't understand that yet, or people they don't want proof in a world of lies or something. But it's just so fundamentally important, I think, to everything. Like it can be applied to everything.
Yeah.
And it's never been done before. And I think that it's amazing. And it's something that when you start using stuff like that with stuff like these new, AI technologies that we're seeing, I don't see how it's not a whole new world. Like everything's different after that. Everything's different. Has to be.
Oh, for sure. Well, I mean, and when you think about some of the amazing things that are going to happen too, like my prediction is in 3 years, we're going to have like feature length films generated from something similar to a text prompt, right? Give it 3 years and we'll see if I'm right, but it may happen sooner. Oh yeah, for sure. It is
Gen 2 just got released to the public yesterday. Like Gen 2, Runway Gen 2, you can make videos just by typing in text.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
Well, that's what
you provide a script with settings. It should be able. You imagine you could do some really amazing stuff with that, right?
Yeah, like what Greg, you mentioned it during the panel. I forget which question it was about, but the idea of using it for video compression. Now, I don't think that you can, at least right now, you can't do it in the reverse, where if you want to have an exact film that you want to take and compress it this way, that you can do it. But if you're generating something like a film with AI from the very beginning, then you can take all of that, the seeds and the prompts and the software version and the specific training model that you use and all of that, and package it into a transaction and say, wow, there's your movie. And then you don't have to actually transmit the data itself on the end user side, the client side. They can just reproduce it and watch it.
Can I say you might also you imagine what that would open up too for the merge between what is the film industry and what is the gaming industry, that if instead of at the end of the DVD there's an alternate ending to the zombie movie, if you would have a little bit, it's like, oh, mine ended this way, and it can be stored and other people could watch it. It could be pretty interesting. You could end up,
I mean, or like you want to give your kids the experience of the artistic impression of a film that's just completely filthy for a kid, right? So you say,
yes,
change this generation to a kid-friendly form, and boom,
yes,
out shoots
interesting.
What would be too gory or too scary or too obscene.
You could have the same film and then be like, give me a G-rated, give me a PG-13, give me an R-rated.
Right. Or like, give me a version of Old Yeller. Where
I'm afraid of XYZ.
Right. Like,
I don't want to see ABC. That would actually be pretty freaking valuable, because it would open up the markets. It's like, okay, all of a sudden this movie could be shown to this other. Yeah.
It's a trigger-free movie, which I feel like is kind of the opposite of movies sometimes, where you're going to like fall into this world and be a part of it, but now you're going to cater exactly what kind of movie.
You go the other way too, right? Like you could have like, give me a full-blown action gore zombie version of The Little Mermaid or whatever, right? Like that could happen.
Or an M. Night Shyamalan version of The Odyssey, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Like, what happens
so
at
much
the end?
possibility.
I don't know.
Yeah, is boring art worth making though, John? I think that's the question there, right?
Yeah, and also like the artist's intent too is like, all right, so like films, we can all say like some films are just garbage. They're made to make money.
Some.
Some films are like, hey, this is like supposed to be like a work of art, right? This isn't just like a production by a giant corporation to give people a lot of money and keep people silent. But like other people, it's like this is a work of art. You can look at like the music fakes, right? That come out all the time. It's like here's this weird collaboration of two artists and stuff like that. It's like this should be art. This shouldn't be.
But
is it any less art though because you add an algorithmic implement?
Like if you've like
just
tried
a more
to
fancy paintbrush.
Scroll through Prime Video or Netflix recently, you realize that 90% of all films are not art, right? 90% are just, it's a churn, right? It's like, oh, we have to make this. Here's some actors. Here's some BS. It's like, okay, there's the movie, right? You could essentially make that much cheaper, and you could make it much more unpredictable. You could give it a lot more of a feel. If I don't want to play games, but I want to have some. It's like, oh, I want something totally random, and I want some crazy cameo by this character, and it would be funny when it, and you could do stuff that would be entertaining. And it's not art, but neither are.
Well, I mean, I would dispute that point. I think it's art. I think that it's all art, and
it's your person. Like you're the artist at this point, though.
Yeah. Yes.
Well,
yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Are you? Or
if I'm the one telling the computer
a
what to
collaborator,
make,
right?
I'm the director. Like when you put a film
the
together, it's the combination of a bunch of minds coming together under one direction or one production idea.
Is that any different than having a crappier TV than the original creator intended for a movie? Like it's just you're kind of the creator at home when you play it on your choice of screen, right? Like it's just it gives a little bit more of an advanced level of freedom to the end user. But
I mean, I'll put it this way: like listening to acid jazz, the optimal way to listen to that is not sitting in your work cubicle, working on TPS reports, right? But maybe that's not the way the artist intended it to. But like that's still at least like a good enough version of that.
And
artist intent,
let alone. Imagine, I mean, how many movies have you seen in the past few years? Any Marvel movie, for example, where you get to some point in the movie, it's like, okay, I'm suspending disbelief for this, but at some point you realize it's like, what the hell? There's some gigantic stupid hole in the plot. If you could say, hey, screw that, figure out a different path because that's stupid, right?
That way. I think you get to a certain point where you're insulted. Because it doesn't make any sense at all. But I wanted to make a point about what John said, that some movies are trash just because they're made to make money. I think we've gotten to the point where people want that more than a good movie.
And if you're a purist, you can tell it to run in purist mode, right?
Well, we watched a movie last night. It was 65, and terrible reviews by critics. Terrible. Really, really hit it hard. But it was a good movie. And the problem was it wasn't just what it looked like in the trailers, just 100% action, no story. It was an actual movie. There was like action and he was killing dinosaurs and it was like a Turok movie.
It's pretty cool.
It was a very cool movie, but it was a real movie.
They made a mistake though with the language, with the girl having a separate language. They should have had them just speak the same language. That
was more artsy. It was more like a hurdle he had to come over. And like in the movie starts out, he crashes. People are dead. He's like, everyone's dead. Then it says like command. And he's going to kill himself. We're like, whoa, what? You're not going to try to live there? And then all of a sudden there's a pod. And then he finds the girl. And then it's the story.
Isn't it Aliens?
Mm-hmm. No. There's a race of human beings.
Sounds familiar anyway.
But
Pitch Black was very similar to it.
Yeah, it was more Pitch Black, but it was like Earth and dinosaurs before the asteroid hit. But it was a good movie. It wasn't just a mindless to make money, movie.
Take care.
And critics and everybody just tore it to shreds.
Well, independent art still exists. A lot of people look at the corporate churn of art and think, for example, music sucks these days. I've been hearing that for 10 or 20 years. Yep. Music's terrible these days. Music sucks these days.
Terrible injustice to music.
But yeah, if you listen only to what you're being spoon-fed every day, yeah, music's terrible to you, isn't it? Yep. It's like if you never go treasure hunting, you're never going to find any treasure. There's massive music festivals and there's massive art communities that are not represented by the things that people look at and say, that's the music industry, that's the film industry, that's the whatever.
Those kinds of criticisms too are just like straight preference statements. They're not really meaningful critiques.
I think like that's true, but also like I think to find anything good, you got to do a little bit of work. So like it's probably easier to find like good music that you like if you do a little bit of research, right? If you dive a little bit into the genre that you're looking for, you'll find something good in there.
I think there are a lot of people who love hating on stuff, and they're just going to hate on whatever they're presented with. Right?
That's true too. That's why everybody should take an improv class. Okay, everybody go take an improv class. You got a yes and life. You got a yes and everything. Right? Go watch the movie Yes Man. Just do what he does because it works out for him in the end.
Yeah, there's something to appreciate about every piece of art, I think.
Exactly. But I gotta go pack. I'm leaving this smoky city for a week. But yeah, I'll be here too. But yeah, you guys have a good
Thanks,
show.
John.
Nice seeing everybody.
Yeah, good, John.
Bye.
Yeah, I think people should listen to bad music more often, if for no other reason than it'll let them know what they do like more. It's like, actually, that other song's not so bad. But no, that's
Honestly,
how you find stuff.
There's not really bad music.
There's bad music. There is. If you're into jam bands and improv, then you have sat through some bad music. But that's how you get to the gold, and that's how you find things that really matter in your life. Is you have to be able to put up with the world until you find the thing. Everything can't just be the nugget of goodness constantly.
Every half-hour song played by a jam band has at least 3 minutes of it that are just magic.
A few chords.
A really good one will have more than that. But
I mean, there are a lot of unique artists out there, and the problem is the machine. And so, frankly, people, I say this, it's up to them. But if people were more, just even a slight, it doesn't even take much work, just a slightly bit more active, trying to find good artists, they'd find them. I mean, they're out there. It's just the machine. Yeah. The machine wants to push because the machine doesn't typically own them, or they don't fit into the mold that the machine knows that they can leverage. So,
well, even the machine-owned ones, like you want to talk about a classically structured, if a little bit too saccharine song, turn on pop radio, right? These are classic pop songs structured just so to hit ear candy in just the right way. Some people think it's gross, right? But if you listen to them as they present, then what you're looking at is a pop song reduced to its purest form, right?
Hey,
I'll offer beauty in that if you're willing to.
I'll offer a wrench for the conversational spokes here. This is where I start thinking about the limits of how capitalism should be applied to a society, because there's so many things that I think that capitalism is so very good at and so efficient at, and has produced really, like human progress wise, it's done a lot for us. But when you come up against things like art, or even things like health and things like that, it starts getting to the point where it's like, man, there are some areas that, even as somebody who understands the value of capitalism and is a proponent of capitalism, I am often challenged by things like what we're talking about right now, where capitalism has produced this churn of bland art, for example, So well, I don't know if anybody wants to talk about that or not, but it's something that came to mind.
Bland art, it's that maybe artists that we're seeing is, of course, what these algorithms want us to see. It's all pushed up. We don't really see these newer things because, like, I'm an emerging artist, for example. Most people don't know my work. I'm doing innovative things that are newer. And these algorithms, like social media, they're saying, no, don't look at that stuff. Look at the things that everyone else likes. So it's the idea of popularity. And really now, especially with AI, it's like people are worried that AI is going to replace jobs, especially with right now it's happening with the writer's strike. A lot of people are worried that it's replacing copywriters, these creatives. But the truth is, it's not that AI is going to replace the jobs. That people using AI are going to replace the people who are not using AI. This evolution
absolutely. And I don't think it's really capitalism that we need to be. I don't like the word capitalism. I prefer to think of them as free markets, right? We don't really have free markets in that sense, because the algorithm is pushing kind of a prepackaged version for us. If we had, choice optimized, where it was trying to present us with a palette of markets, right, we would be looking at a different world. What we don't have is true free markets.
I got a rough opinion when it comes to the writer's strike, and like Joe said earlier, I think they need to die. I think they're, like, screw it. I think the entertainment industry needs to completely collapse. It's too bloated. It's too, like I said, fake. It's terrible. I think it needs to collapse and then be remade. Also agree with listening to bad music, because if you don't, when you do hear it, it shocks you. I was watching a video. Last night. This guy had on this platinum rapper, and they played like one of his videos real quick, and I clutched my pearls at the horror of what I was seeing. And this, I swear, I was like, oh, "What the hell is that?" I feel offended and hurt. It was like, I mean, like a child who's barely learning to speak could do better than that. It's horrible. So much of it is horrible.
Nobody look up Dick and Jane, and the song title is Spanky Spanky. Nobody should ever watch that.
Don't look that up without safe search filters.
Real quick, I want to say something that's interesting that could be thought of as an, I don't know if it's an analogy or not direct, but unrelated to AI, that something that surprised me was the advent of more efficient animation techniques, right? Where they were using computers to do the betweens of animations, 3D and 2D, that made it simpler for studios to produce animated movies, right? Some of them are still high budget and everything else. But the thing that surprised the heck out of me was, unlike back in the golden era of cartoons, Looney Tunes, for example, right? Early cartoons, they had voice actors that could do interesting voices, whereas mostly, far and away, every goddamn freaking animated movie uses a known actor. So they're paying more for that known actor, which surprises the crap out of me. And that known actor doesn't even have a voice that is sometimes appropriate for Mario, let's say, or other, it's like, do you really need the famous actor to play the Mario and then refuse to do an Italian voice, Mario's actual voice? Like, or should you get Mario's voice? It's like, it's an animated movie. Why the hell do you need that actor? It's freaking crazy.
They want it for the following, though, right? For when the movie comes out.
I don't know, right?
I figured
it's definitely the name recognition helps marketing massively, and that has to be a huge part of it. I don't see how it's not, because even when I used to do shows in like music festivals and stuff, it was always like, okay, get your big names up there that fit the genre and the vibe that you want, and then you can fill in the games or the bands that maybe you really want to to showcase or to hear as well. But you got to put these big names up top so people pay attention to it.
Yeah, it's not about quality; it's about reach, right? I mean, so that's why you don't have a Mel Blanc anymore, who was you imagine if they just used Cary Grant for Bugs Bunny, right?
That'd be terrible.
Using Cary Grant,
crime, man. Some of those early voice acting, like, you guys remember the scene where they had was it Daffy Duck and in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where they were playing dueling pianos, Daffy Duck and who was the other side of that? Same voice actor was doing both characters at the same time. That is amazing, right? That's freaking amazing. And that's not something you get when you hire celebrity voice actors. Right?
That's what I like about some of these, like, I don't know what you would call them other than like mature or like cartoons directed at adults, where you have like McFarlane or somebody doing 20 freaking characters, in the show. That shit impresses me. Some people are, some people are fantastic voice actors, and some people are fantastic film actors.
And that's what the last big hoo-ha with the guy that does Bender. It was a huge thing because they don't want to pay voice actors. They don't want to put them on the same level. And they fired him from the upcoming movie or the new series. And it was massive, man. I mean, it was all over the news. There was a lot of fans were like, I'm not going to watch it because you're screwing this guy who's, this legitimate actor who's super talented. And they ended up breaking down, paying him, and bringing him back on. I was going to make a joke about Bob Hoskins before Greg brought up Roger Rabbit, because the first Mario movie, they had Bob Hoskins, this like chubby old British guy play Mario, and the movie flopped. Didn't do well. And John Leguizamo as Luigi, but and then Greg brought up Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which also starred Bob Hoskins. I thought that was
Oh, Who Framed Roger Rabbit was actually a brilliant piece of.
Yeah, it was, but he wasn't playing something, but he wasn't playing like Mario or an Italian guy.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But he was in both movies. You brought up that before I could.
That's funny.
Mario.
So, how about that AI?
With the idea of voice actors can actually now be replaced by AI, this idea of deep fakes of voice.
Yeah.
Record you for 3 seconds and it could recreate a voice. That is quite revolutionary, but also, it's quite scary. I mean, 11 Labs, you can just record a voice and then you replace it with this video that's also created by AI. It really is
FakeU.com also. There's another one.
Our production.
You can literally submit a sample and they'll make a voice for you.
Yeah, I've seen some really entertaining but interesting demos of that on like just watching YouTube videos where it's a scene, a very popular, famous scene in a film, but it's with Arnold Schwarzenegger and it looks and sounds just like him in that role.
Yeah, I watched
or Star Wars, but made by Wes Anderson. That kind of thing. And it's really high quality and convincing and fantastic. And these actors are represented accurately. And there's no freaking way that companies who own likenesses to people, like Disney, for example, that own people's likeness, are not going to use that to make films. They already do it with Star Wars. They put dead people in a movie, and there's controversy around it. Now they're going to be able to do that better and without relying on taking old footage and making it look like it's new.
Imagine if you can hybridize too. Like, what if you can?
Sure, it's going to get convincingly better. And
like the de-aging technology is putting a deep fake on the real person, and making a 65-year-old person look like he was 35.
And one could argue that Disney also owns the means to protect that IP, which is the Senate, and that I would not be against.
Let us hope that they don't try to limit deep fake technology in that way. Because we have generative AI being subjected to a weird version of copyright where whatever it's used to be trained on is passing on its heritable protectedness. That's going to be a future where only they can use the generative tech, and everybody else is going to be stuck with this paucity of access, and we really can't live in that world. That would suck.
They've definitely shown that they are the ones in charge of how long IP lasts, before it's public domain.
Yep.
Like with
Although
Mickey
we
Mouse.
can now use Winnie the Pooh to some extent without.
But yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I don't think they're necessarily a pure evil corp or anything like that, but they definitely are a corp that does evil shit, like many do, to protect their bottom line and to make a profit. And there's no way that everybody who has the means to do this type of thing and cut people out of the production that they no longer need isn't going to try to do it.
Need to give up the moats, man. They need to give up the moats. If they were to, rather than
it's not even about
rest on. No, it is. It's about profiting off of something they've been profiting off of for a very, very long time, right? They don't want other people to profit from it. So, like if you as a company decide not to hold on to the past.
I've said this before. If lawyers are the pure active evil in the world, right? Law not being real, right? That accountancy is the passive evil in the world, which essentially any time you put what would be a good, valuable product that is generated by a classic company and you put it into a publicly traded forum, at least in our current reality, that you end up with that product successively getting worse and worse and or less healthy or whatever it is. It's a negative because the bottom line is the pure thing that the accountants will drive for, and the bean counters don't give a shit if the end users like it or not, and they don't give a shit about the long-term effect of them declining the value.
And this is where
they also miss hardcore because econometrics is a corruption of economics. But
this is where I think that consumer consumer responsibility in like pushback and forms of protest and things like that is important, because look at what happened with Star Wars, I guess, where there was a lot of like everybody was going heavy into CG because you could do a lot of stuff with CG. You could do it quickly. It looked pretty good. Maybe it's a little bit too shiny, but it looks convincing and it's awesome. Graphics are here. Let's just use CG. Well, they've gone back to using what do they call it? Not traditional, but like
motion.
Not stop motion. What is it that I'm thinking of, Jay? It's called not CG effects, but practical special effects, right? They're using
and makeup
models and they're using things like that. Even if it's hybridized and they're still CG, they've gone back to using things that make it look
more organic.
Well, the original Jurassic Park, right, which was like an advent for CG supposedly.
So
that was actually CG combined with animatronics.
It was, yeah. And so I'm wondering if the same kind of thing can or will happen with film, where studios start going heavy into AI to produce content. People start complaining about it. The bottom line drops because people don't like it as much. They want it made with real people and real voices. They want the DVD outtakes so they can see people in front of their microphone recording the voice for the cartoon character, stuff like that.
They want to see that
brings it. Yeah, so I think that it's up to society to push back against removing those means of those methods of producing art.
The synthesizer made brought back electric guitars, man. Ultimately, right? Like people got into synth music, and then the counter response to that was Jack White playing, stripped down rock and roll from a plastic guitar from a thrift store, right? Like, and you got both, the best of both worlds.
Yep.
The first new Star Wars movie where Rey makes that loaf of bread in a bowl with some water.
Yeah,
that's real. It's a practical effect.
They started using this stuff again because of the pushback from fans. Yeah, and so I don't know. I hope that people stay engaged like that.
There's
and don't get passive.
With called Wonder Studio, where it's still beta, so it's not quite open yet. But you can replace an entire person with a fully rigged 3D model. So you can have a person act out the scene and then have a fully CG animated character, either created by AI or import your own 3D model. So yes, virtual effects are being replaced and enhanced with AI. Like I said, this writer strike isn't just writers; it's the entire industry realizing that AI is doing something.
Well, I mean, and ultimately, those writers are going to evolve just fine to prompt engineering, right? They're going to be ultimately.
Yes, prompt engineering, exactly. So I was thinking, like, what is a good from university school? Like, what's a good degree to get? I think actually studying English is actually pretty good because that does help with prompt engineering.
Yeah, take poetry writing. Take poetry writing.
Creative writing.
Yeah.
I saw a meme that said it was about AI taking jobs of creatives. And said in order for someone to basically it was saying that the client will have to describe accurately what they want, so we're safe. I thought that was pretty funny.
Dude, well, I mean, and when you think about it, AI that we've got right now that we call creative is actually just generative on all of the corpus of human creativity so far that was on the internet, right? Like, it's not creating; it's creating based on what we've already done. It's human creativity just rewritten rather than some new form of spontaneous creation.
I'm definitely able to be more creative than I was before. I'm pretty good with Photoshop, but now I can fire up Stable Diffusion and say, give me Gary Gensler dressed up as a Jedi. I need to use him in a meme. And it'll be like, oh, here's 5 examples of that. And I pick one and I'm like, cool. Now change this, make his hands not stupid, fix his face. Okay, great. And then I put that in Photoshop or GIMP as I use and, go with that. So it's definitely helped. Things that I would like to have done. I've never studied art in a way that made me an artist. But I know what I want. And so now I can basically have a free intern to make it for me to an extent.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
There's even now AI inside of Photoshop I've been playing around with where you can just drag an area and say what it wants to be. So yes, it's an incredible, it is incredibly scary. But again, I think it is more of a tool for an artist. I love to hear that, you're not an artist and you're creating artwork like that. To me, you're creating. That's really the goal of using your imagination to build these new worlds.
Right.
And
It's a new kind of paintbrush is all it is.
yeah, it's a tool, and don't discount the fact that they might be used to prototype timing on something before they actually do whatever they're going to really do. Right? I mean, it's useful for that purpose even.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to jump off, guys. It was good hanging out with everybody. It was nice seeing y'all.
All right, Sean.
I'll see y'all
Bye,
later.
Sean.
Yeah, we got to wrap in 10 minutes maximum anyway. We got a hard stop coming up, so that's fine.
Well, you guys want to talk about any other current events before we?
Oh, I wanted to ask everybody a funny AI question. Like, what would be the one situation that you would rather talk to AI versus a real person? Or is
depends on the training model.
Oh.
depends on the AI. Yeah.
I would
like,
say one.
Yeah, go ahead, Greg.
I would say when I'm talking to, when I'm trying to figure out exactly what to expect from some professional with specific training, like a doctor or a counselor or whatever, I would prefer to talk to an AI because you can ask it perspective frame questions. Like you can essentially get around the pedantic nature of some professionals, where you can get them to go to explain it at your level of detail because the AI isn't going to dumb it down for you no matter what.
And frankly, in that exact situation where there are too many doctors that get offended when you bring up research that they don't know about, or and it actually, I've had doctors lie to me before. And half of it is he was annoyed that I was asking him questions about research that I'd read, and that's very inappropriate, violation of Hippocratic oath. But guess what?
Yeah,
he did it right, and an AI wouldn't do that. And again, that's the reason you need a transparency, and frankly, probably on-chain transparency of how that thing is trained, so wait, did you look at this? Do you know about that? Right.
One interesting thing to try, guys, if you want to get a sense of what I'm talking about here, talk to ChatGPT about your results from your latest doctor's visit, but talk about it from the perspective of a doctor who is being trained in how to break the news that you got to say ChatGPT from the perspective of someone who trains doctors. How would you advise the doctor to relate the results of this to the person who got them? Right, like you can end up with some really interesting insight into how doctors are trained. Like,
I do like the idea of using it. I don't know, instead of the human professional, Lisa, but in addition to a doctor, for example. I think that there's a huge opportunity to unleash a product called second opinion or something like that, where people can get a second opinion based on what they're talking to their doctor about or whatever. And not that it's, an overriding opinion or whatever, but like some people just want to talk about things that they're concerned about and have someone give them a non-political answer or something like that, which I've had a lot of trouble doing from a couple of angles. One, and it's mostly because other people do stuff that's stupid. And so the doctors just basically put everyone through this filter of assuming that you're lying to them or going to do something stupid, in my experience. One being my experience with the VA medical system. Fantastic doctors if you can get through their triage of assuming everyone's lying and just trying to get a benefit. Similarly, I had
a vet. Like, just tell me online how much Benadryl my dog can take. Don't tell me that I need to see a vet to check to see if they really need allergy medicine, right?
Right. Or if I have questions about, like, I had a legitimate question about like using ivermectin to treat parasites in humans.
Yeah.
Which is on brand for it. But the doctor was like unwilling to have the conversations. Like, well, no, we're not. No.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, well, can you recommend something different then that's not that thing?
Speaking.
I don't know. And I have these weird political blockades that should not be in a professional setting. And this is where I think that something like a medical AI could be important, even if the answer you get is the same thing you end up getting from the doctor, but explained in a way that doesn't make you feel bad for asking the question.
and or
Interesting.
more efficiently. You might still need to go to a doctor, but you'll at least know, okay, I checked this out. We do this in my family a lot, where it's like, oh, the dog ate something. Is that an issue? It's like, when you look it up on Google, you don't need to call the vet. Now, if Google tells you, it's like, oh no, this is dangerous, then you go to the vet, right? That's a powerful tool, and it's not even AI. So if you're talking about
and the problem is Google's gotten so much flack that Project Owl now stuffs the results that actually give you real answers. Every single result you get now says you need to make an appointment with a doctor, even if you really don't.
Yeah.
Right. Like, you used to be able to go and get like a doctor who was willing to answer online and say, like, you should probably still see a doctor at the end of it.
I feel like a lot of that's just them covering their ass, though, right? Like, a lot of that is like, what if somebody doesn't call a doctor and they blame Google because their thing didn't say it? So now they just say it as a plastic bag that says, don't put this over your head, just so they don't get sued.
The issue with, and that's on the lawyer side, the fact that now, no matter what you call medical, you're gonna have to wait. Let's say you have an emergency, or you just don't have unlimited time. You're gonna have to wait because of all the liability bullshit that the voice mail needs to tell you to say, if this is an emergency, dial the 911. If it isn't, and blah blah blah. It's just like, it's so disgusting. It's like, I'm not stupid, right?
Yeah.
So maybe this helps with all that.
Maybe. Other events.
Did you have an answer to that question too, Lisa?
Yeah. Thanks.
Something that might be useful for just bringing up and not go into depth, but apparently YouTube just dropped any blocking of anyone talking about the election issues in 2020. That was interesting.
Really?
I have no idea what prompted that.
Probably competition from Twitter.
Maybe.
Yeah, it is interesting. So that's a current event. We don't have time to talk about it because we're at our hard stop, basically. Yep. But that is an interesting current event, is that Twitter is becoming more of a video, like TV channel outlet.
They need to fix their Android video. If you try to change orientation, if you try, it breaks. It's crap.
I don't use the app. I have an Android phone. I don't use the app unless I need to participate in a Google's or a what do you call it? Twitter Spaces. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, just use your web browser. People, for some reason, don't realize that you can access websites on your phone with a browser. Like, that's a thing that you can still do.
Yep.
So we can literally say the words now. It won't cause our viewer count to drop. Like, we want to
supposedly. By the way, that's
only
the other
about
thing.
Voting.
I did answer that somewhere in DIN that and directly based upon what you've mentioned in the past about users, and particularly young people that don't understand that you can get to a website from an app. They won't even use an app. And there was someone on 4chan that, and I don't remember if I posted this as me or anonymously, but either way, that someone on 4chan was specifically talking about the fact that it probably would be a good thing, because Twitter has some issue where they are dropping their APIs, and it's almost certainly, I've not looked into it, but it's almost certainly so that they can control ad exposure, right?
For Reddit.
Apps, Reddit. Sorry, that Reddit. Their APIs are closing out, right?
I did see that, and the person was arguing that actually that would be great, because everybody who only knows how to use an app with a touchscreen and their two thumbs, and they don't use anything else, and they can't figure out how to think about it enough to access it with a web browser, they won't be here anymore. Yay! Which was a very sarcastic, it might have some borderline insulting way to say it, but there's probably something there. There is a lot of, we talked about lazy people, and I don't want to slam people for being not a computer nerd. That's absurd. But there is definitely something to say there about ease of access is wonderful if you need it, but everybody shouldn't use the handicap parking spot either, I think is what my reply to that post was. So
that's where that video came out that they were trying to that was trying to go viral. Oh gosh. Was it about the children? Sorry, I know.
15 seconds.
You guys helped me. Anyway, Amanda taught me about the YouTube share button doesn't work on DIN, and you have to use the URL. I was able to post that in that hack in the thing. And so
Oh.
then everybody figured it out, and they were like, oh,
Thank
that's
you.
why we can't just share on Twitter, because they've used that as a censorship mechanism. And so then everybody was able to use the URL and
Nice.
actually share that movie. So
Well, thank you for doing that.
Putting
Yeah,
freedom
and I should
out.
do more short videos like that. We'll talk about it on
It's
Dendao
very
today as well.
That's awesome.
Right on.
That's
All right.
super awesome.
All right, that's all time we got. That's it. We have to stop now. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, guys.
We'll see you next week.